Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video I have something very special for you. This is an old but gold, and for today we have another Dell Precision mobile workstation review, but for today it's going to be something very special. I just mentioned for today's video we have one of the most iconic, famous and powerful mobile workstation, 17 inches, that we had in the whole history of mobile workstations from Dell. And this is Dell Precision M6500 in the red Covet Special Edition. So stay tuned in the video if you want to take a look to this workstation, and I don't know, maybe we can still make some restorations and bring it back to life in 2022. So welcome back guys, and for today, as just mentioned, we have the Dell Precision M6500. This is a quite old mobile workstation already. It is around already 12 years in the market, maybe 13 years already in the market, so which is not really new, I will say. But this model was one of the most iconic workstations that we have in the Dell Precision Mobile Workstation series, because this was the introduction of the Core i series back in the days, and we had the jump from the quad core and dual core platforms series CPUs from Intel to the i series of Synthes, which are the Core i3, Core i5 and Core i7. And this was the first generation. Imagine that now we are in the 12th generation of Intel Core series. This was the first generation of Intel Core series. So this was a huge jump in performance. It was a huge jump in features that the CPUs offered back in those days. And as I just mentioned, it was everything in this mobile workstation packed. And let's start talking about what are the features of those workstations, who was the target of this mobile workstation back in the days around in 2010, 2009. We are going to discuss as well why it was so special and how this introduced a new concept of what was mobile computing. So let's start with the features and the target market. So let me tell you a small history, like always, because I want you to know from my experience and from reality what is the purpose of these computers, and what was the purpose actually of this computer in specific. I remember my first big job that I have when I was still in the university as mechatronic engineer. I was a design engineer for a huge company in Mexico, and which is until now is one of the biggest manufacturers of metal components in the whole world. And that was my first job as design engineer. And I remember that my first computer that I had, it was a Dell Precision T7500 tower workstation. That was the biggest brother of the workstation series back in that day. But the team leaders or the department leaders of the design and simulation departments, of the design engineering and simulation department, they used to have mobile workstations because they were always like in meetings or traveling to another countries to check the providers, the suppliers, and then they could not even always rely in desktop workstation in order to make the job. So I first met this kind of computers when I was 19 years old, and it was my boss back in that day. He has a Dell Precision mobile workstation. He had as well the same model, the M6500 series, but it was like the normal edition with an Intel Core i7-720, I remember, and 6 GB of RAM. 6 GB of RAM in that day was more than enough. And the boss of the design engineering department and the simulation department, they had like they had the same model, the 6500, but with Intel Core Extreme Editions series, which are those with this black sticker in those days. I think until now it's still those Extreme series are still available. And that's the first time that I met this kind of mobile workstations. And as I said, it was like to try to improve a little bit the mobility and transportability of computer power on the go for the team leaders, for the bosses, and all the people that had to make some traveling or meetings outside the office. So that was the main purpose of this. And I remember in those days we used to design most of the carrossery components of the automobile components with the software CATIA and with the software Siemens Unigraphics, and sometimes with SolidWorks and sometimes with PTC Creo. And this computer was amazing in those days, and let me tell you, and I will going to spoil you a little bit, it's still amazing until today, even if it is 12 years old. So that was a little bit history in when I met this computer and when I met this workstation and what was the target market. Of course, it is like production environments, industries, big companies, and as always until today, people that are more in the market of reliable and powerful computers. So let's start now with the features of this computer. Let me show you. If you notice, this computer is a little bit red. It's kind of an orange, metallic orange. It's actually so pretty. I remember when I was younger, I could always only dream about getting this kind of hardware because it was just so nice. And specifically this model in orange, in red orange, it was called the Covet Edition. It was really expensive in those days. It was like $5,000 US, and it was just very difficult to get the hands on one of these Covet Edition, special red editions. I had, in those days, I had the M6400, but this model, as I just mentioned, it was kind of very difficult to get. Now, after 12 years, I got my hands on one of these, and yeah. So this computer, as I just mentioned, this computer is using the first generation of Intel Core series. In my case, I have the Intel Core i7-920X, which is an Extreme Edition core processor, and running at base clock of 2.3 gigahertz, which in that day you need to remember in 2010, 2.3 gigahertz base speed clock, it was huge. It was like really fast. And I have this computer with that processor boosting up to 3.3, 3.4 gigahertz, which is a really nice thing, as I just tell you. And the nice feature of this as well, of course, they use NVIDIA Quadro professional graphics cards, and this one is using the NVIDIA Quadro FX 3800M, which it is a 1 gigabyte DDR3 memory, video memory, and it is amazing. It's so powerful until now, and in that day it was huge powerful. It was like insane powerful, and until now it's still holding its place. Let me tell you, because this configuration that I have here, it's like the top of the configuration that you could get in those days. And let me tell you another thing. This computer, now 12 years old, it has 32 gigabytes of memory RAM. I upgraded it, I bought it with 6 gigabytes of RAM, and I upgraded it to 32 gigabytes of DDR3, 1600 megahertz with 4 8 gigabyte module sticks. And imagine again this, in 2010, 32 gigabytes of memory RAM in a laptop. It was a huge deal. And that's why it was so expensive, like really expensive. In those days, simulations like heavy truck simulations, car simulations, they were using like, I don't know, 24 gigabytes of RAM or something in huge tower workstations. And in a laptop, you could fit 32 gigabytes of RAM. Insane. It has 2 slots for memory, for hard disks. In those days, the solid state drives were introduced already. And this computer, it has 120 gigabyte solid state drive running the main operating system. It's still a very basic 120 gigabytes SATA 3, 6 gigabytes per second, and it has an upgraded as well with a secondary solid state drive with 256 gigabytes. And in that second solid state drive, I just save my programs, I just save some data, some downloads, and some files that do not need directly to be running in the main operating system drive. And you need to mind as well, this is a huge computer. This is a 17-inch computer. The resolution of this laptop is 1920 by 1200. 1920 by 1200. Again, 12 years old laptop with that resolution. That resolution is still nowadays like the standard, like 1080p, a little bit more than 1080p in a 16 by 10 form factor, which I mean, it was an amazing display in that day. Color accurate, the brightness of this monitor is as well very good. And I mean, this computer is just, I think you can notice from my excitement when I'm talking, this computer was just a beast. It was just a monster in that day. And I have my hands on this. It is in a great shape. It's like 9 out of 10 in shape. It has no dents, it has no scratches, everything's perfect. The battery is still holding up like 70%, which is like 1.5 hours of battery life. Like there is literally no scratches on this. It is perfect. I mean, this is just an incredible shape, this computer. And I bought it, let me tell you, I bought this computer for 250 euros, which is around 270 US dollars. It's nothing. Like, of course, after 12 years, such an old device, who wants such an old device? But I am making this review to show you a little bit of the history of mobile computing, of mobile workstations, and how engineers, design engineers, simulations engineers were using already these devices 12 years ago. And how amazing it was, and how amazing are still the mobile workstations. As I just told you, 12 years ago, Intel Core, quad-core, Extreme Edition series processors, 32 gigabytes of memory RAM, 1 gigabyte NVIDIA Quadro professional graphic cards in a mobile device. That's a nice thing, and I think this is part of the history of how we became to have such powerful graphics processors and powerful gaming computers and mobile workstations that we have now in 2022. So that's why I'm doing this review, to give you a little bit of history, and yeah, just to show you how the engineers were working back on those days. And literally engineers of today in big companies, they are not using this model, of course, but they are using the newest model of exactly this same series of Dell Precision mobile workstations. So let's talk about now the physical feature of this computer. In the ports side, we have a firewire i394 connection here. It's an old firewire connection. We have a microphone jack and headphone jack, which was very important, and until today it's very important to have. This computer was already introducing USB 3.0. This USB 3.0, it's running, I think, 60 megabytes per second, which is like 3 or 4 times more than that was USB 2.0 as a standard in those days. It has 2 USB 3.0 ports. It has one DVD multi-write and read and write combo drive here. It has SD card reader. It's not so fast, but I mean, it's still working, and it gives you speeds of up to, I think 60 megabits per second, which is like around 6 to 10 megabytes per second, which is not fast enough for today's standards to play 4K video directly from an SD card. But I mean, you can copy files, and yeah, you still can read at least the files. And you have as well one PCSE card expansion. I never used this in my life. I guess maybe only one time to use like a wireless Wi-Fi card, but I don't remember, to be honest. And that is from the left side. In the back side, we have only the power connector. This is a really power hungry computer. It uses until today the same 240 watts Dell charger brick. It didn't change at all in, I think, 14 years. I think already since 14 years we are still using the same until to now, like the Dell Precision workstation from today and the Alienware Precision and the Alienware computers of today, the biggest guys, are still using the same 240 watts charger brick. And then on the right side we have one USB 2.0, and we have one SATA USB 2.0 combo port. If you want to connect like external hard drives with an eSATA connector. We have VGA connection for an external display. Pretty cool, actually. We have a full-size DisplayPort. DisplayPort, I mean, again, 12 years ago, DisplayPort connection. Very important. We have Ethernet up to gigabit per second. As I just mentioned again, 12 years ago, gigabit per second in a laptop, amazing thing. We have an SD card reader as well, expansion. And here we have like a physical switch to activate the Wi-Fi or the wireless LAN or the 3G or 2G connection if you had the expansion card. This is like a physical switch. If you want totally like airplane mode or something, you could do that in those days with a physical switch. This deactivates completely from the mainboard. And that was, actually it's a very good port options. And until today I think it's a very good choice of ports, and you can use it through pretty much everything. If you need something like old school or maybe like normal USB, SD card reader, CD, DVDs, I think it's a pretty nice thing to have until now. So that was for the ports. Let me show you now a little bit. This is the inside of the workstation. As I already told you, 17-inch, 60 by 10 screen ratio. 1920 by 1200 pixels. It is not matte display. It is like this screen reflector display that gives you but a little bit more of contrast, a little bit more of brightness feeling. And I mean, I need to tell you that if you compare it with normal laptops of today, this display is still so bright and it's still so accurate in colors. So I think it's pretty nice. And in those days, it was not only for engineers or for simulation engineers, it was of course for content creators of those days, for video editors on those days, photo shootings, photo editors. It was just like a heavy duty workstation. That's why the display was still a very good display in those days. Maybe not like the XDR display now from Apple, but hey, 12 years ago, don't forget. The keyboard, actually it's a pretty nice experience, typing experience, the keyboard. It is backlight as well. This is the German keyboard because it is a German computer, and it has a complete numpad as well here in the right. And I don't know if you remember, but workstations before, or some like IBM or Lenovo, very old Lenovo and IBM ThinkStations or ThinkPads, they used to have this point cursor in the middle, and it used to have another left click and right click in the keyboard, you know, for people that was always really like typing, and then you could use this pointing cursor to navigate through the display, and then left click and right clicks with the thumbs. And it was a pretty nice thing actually. And then you have as well your normal trackpad, your normal touchpad. It has Bluetooth and it has Wi-Fi. It is a really nice thing. And actually it has as well a 3G card here. It is not activated, but it has as well a 3G card here. And this is the top of the notch workstation that you could get back in those days. And as I said, it has a webcam as well, like HD webcam, very basic. It has a microphone as well here in the screen, but hey, it can do the job. Until today, it can do the job. Let me tell you. And as I say, backlit keyboard. It's a nice typing experience, and of course, the Extreme Edition processor combined with the high-end NVIDIA graphics cards. It is just a monster. So I will show you now a little bit more of what this computer can still do now with the most actual software that we were using back on those days. And actually I have for you some real samples of components that I used to design when I was younger. And yeah, those components, I designed them in that day, but I'm going to show you as well with new components. And I'm just want to give you like a whole overview of what these computers are capable of. They were capable of and are still capable of. So let me show you. So as you can see now, to install program like for very daily use case scenarios, this computer works amazing, works pretty well. It was like a new computer from today, like a 1000 computer of today. Of course, it has no comparisons with modern NVIDIA RTX 3070 in a mobile computer, but it still performs amazing. So let me show you. I will be showing you like some samples in my computer, and I will try to explain to you why this still it's a nice thing. And as you can see here now, this computer is using the Intel Core i7 940XM. It is 4 cores, 8 threads, and it goes up to 55 watts of power. I am using 32 gigabytes of DDR3 memory with 1600, I think, 1600 megahertz. And I am using, as I told you, the NVIDIA Quadro FX 3800M. This is, let me repeat you, an amazing graphics card. And even now, I'm still recording with OBS Studio at full HD and 30 frames per second. The computer is recording as well itself, so it's doing something else. And as you can see, the cores are here being pushing up to like 3.2 gigahertz, which is a very nice thing. And let me show you as well the temperatures, just to let me check if we even can to check the temperatures because of the old sensors and compatibility with software and hardware info. But yeah, now we are seeing here that it is running like from 2.4 gigahertz, like in an idle mode, to up to 70 degrees Celsius, which is a pretty good temperature. I'm still going to, maybe I'm going to show you later how I'm going to replace the thermal paste with a liquid metal. I'm just trying to make some like a little bit crazy stuff with this computer, and I'm going to try to push so hard as I can the performance of this Extreme Edition CPU of 12 years old in this workstation. But yeah, the temperatures are pretty standard, pretty okay, and as I'm just telling you, it is recording with OBS Studio in full HD. Let me check if we can get the temperatures as well of the NVIDIA Quadro. Yeah, the NVIDIA Quadro is running at 44 degrees Celsius approximately. I'm not sure if this is really correct. I don't think so. But yeah, it should be more or less in those temperatures. As I said, it's a pretty heavy computer. It's a pretty beefy cooling system, and temperature is usually not a problem for this kind of thickness workstations. So that is for the internal components. Let's take a look now, for example, to a SolidWorks model. I am using here SolidWorks. This is the 2022 Student Edition. I have the premium version because of my PhD and my research. So yeah, let's take a look here. As I say, we are using OBS Studio in the background, and we are going to push a little bit harder with SolidWorks. Let's say how it behaves, the computer. Eh? So now I'm going to open a model. I made this model when I was as well like 19 years old. It is already like 10 years old model. This is a 3D model of my laboratory in which I was working as an intern, research intern. Always in the university I was working as a student assistant of research, and I was like the head of this laboratory when I was younger. And for a project, we wanted to remodel the lab, but we of course needed to prove that the remodelation had a meaning, and how do we wanted to have the new structure of the lab. I gave to myself this task, like, Jorge, you need to 3D model the whole lab. Like, I mean, the basic stuff of the whole lab, not every detail and not every like perfect, but I was measuring everything, and I made a really nice model, and this is the one that you are watching here now. And I made that as well with my Dell Precision mobile workstation from that time. And take a look. This is as well, as I just mentioned, it's a new version of SolidWorks, like completely new version of SolidWorks of this year, like the actual version of SolidWorks. And take a look how it's looking so good. I mean, you can also take a look to the textures if you want. Yeah, and this is a 12 years old computer, and I mean, it is an amazing computer. I am using here my 3D space mouse, but if I use my normal mouse, you can see how fluent this is. Yeah, it has no problem, but I use always my 3D space mouse. And take a look. I mean, this is a very nice computer. Even today, even the newest version of the software is making an amazing job. And because of the NVIDIA Quadro, you have access to this real view graphics still. If we deactivate the real view graphics, it performs even better. Even better it performs. So, but I like the real view graphics. I need to tell you. So if we deactivate the ambient occlusion, actually it works pretty well, and you can do pretty much everything. You can visualize every component that you have. For example, this is a Bosch profile aluminum table, and it looks pretty well. No, I mean, it is a pretty nice computer still. And this is a big model. I mean, if you still have this workstation and you have maybe like a cube, or you are into 3D printing as a hobbyist, you usually have 1, 2, 3 components assemblies. I don't know, but this is like a, I don't know, maybe like a 100 components assembly, maybe more. Yeah, and it works perfect. I mean, SolidWorks, a 100 components assembly, more than 100 probably, it works perfect. We can close this now, and then we can open the camera model that I was showing you as well in one of my other videos with our recent graphics cards. This is a little bit more heavier because this is a mesh model. It's a mesh-based model, but let's take a look how it works. And don't forget that we still have OBS Studio recording in the background. So let's take a look now. Now this is the camera, and actually looks pretty good. Of course, this is heavy, the model, because of the mesh, but hey, the computer handles it pretty well. I mean, imagine that you have only these components because you want to 3D print them, and it's perfect. I mean, this computer, it's a monster until now. And again, because you have the NVIDIA Quadro graphics card, you still have access to the real view graphics, which I think is a pretty nice thing to have. So that was for SolidWorks. Let's jump now into CATIA. Don't save this because it's important. Let's jump now into CATIA and let's take a look how it performs. This is a chassis model of a truck. This is a real component that back on those days I was using to make some tests for like design and construction of some models. So if you take a look, this model was created in CATIA V5. In those days it was the release 19 and release 20. I'm still using like the release 28, I think. I don't remember correctly, but it is like from 2017, my student edition, like my university edition that I'm still using from CATIA. And looks how fluent it is. I mean, this software, it is a so expensive software, and most of the production companies and industries in the whole world use CATIA as a software, as a main software for design and construction. And if you see here, this software is working perfectly, and the model looks so good, so fluent, because as I've been telling you, this computer was made for this in that time. And until now works perfect. There is no problems at all. You can visualize components, you can have more components, you can do everything that you want. You can make some sketches. There is no problems at all to manipulate 3D models and big assemblies, even with this old computer. Here we have like, I don't know, like 60 components more or less. Yeah, like here we have like 16 components more or less. But that's not everything. I remember when I was young and when I was working in this company, the most experienced engineers, they do not only use one chassis model. They do not only use one model. They use more because they want to compare things. They want to see how it variates one model to the next year model, or one component to the other component, and they have a lot of things open. And believe me when I tell you that this computer makes an amazing job. Let me show you now. If you see here, I have the same chassis, but copied 6 times. 6 times, which means already like more than 300 components, like almost 400 components, and this is heavy. This is real. This is like a 7 meters long components, and hey, you can manipulate all of them. Maybe you can see when you zoom out a little bit of performance degradation, but it is perfect. I was working with some surfaces and some meshing, trying to make an optimization of one bracket, and if you see here, it works perfect. And you can manipulate a lot of things in the viewport. And as I say, this is a very old NVIDIA Quadro professional graphics cards, and that's as well a thing about NVIDIA Quadro's graphics cards. When you have them and you use them correctly, they are going to perform so much better than gaming graphics cards. NVIDIA and CATIA and Dassault Systems, they work pretty much together in the development of the software in order to match perfectly with the hardware. So that's why I always recommend to do this kind of job. NVIDIA Quadro professional graphics cards, they do an amazing job. So this is another example. I just want to tell you and show you these are real models, like real models, very old models, 15 years old, maybe like 13, 12 years old that I made and I was using to test, and hey, it works like perfect. You know what I mean? You can rotate, you can do everything that you can imagine with this. So let's continue. Let's close CATIA. So now here I have Cura. This is like one of the most used software for hobbyists and professionals in direction of 3D printing and 3D printers. So let's just open like a small example here, just something very small, just to show you how it still performs very well, and it is going to make an amazing job even now. Let's just open this project. I mean, I don't know even what I'm opening. I will just click OK, open, and as you can see, it works like normal, like everything. No, I mean, if I just show you more than 400 components in CATIA in a professional software with real manufacturable, professional, made by experts components, more than 400. I mean, this is just one component. This is nothing. This is like, yeah. And this computer is going to handle everything. I mean, you can copy it, you can do a lot of things here, and it's going to like make nothing to this component. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, for visualization, the NVIDIA Quadro graphics card is making an amazing job here. And the Extreme Edition Intel CPU, even after all this time, it's still matching the performance, because as you see here, for example, the performance is like 23%, 20%, running OBS Studio still in the background, recording the video of my desktop. Only 4 GB of memory RAM of the 32 that we have available. SSD is nothing, and yeah. And you will say, Jorge, but the GPU, I don't see the GPU in the task manager. It's because in that time, the drivers of NVIDIA were still not compatible with the task manager. And because this computer, I managed to install Windows 10, and all of the components of Windows 10 are driving perfectly with this computer. But probably you will have problems because this computer is not Windows 10 certified. This computer is Windows 7 certified, and you need to tweak some stuff in order to have everything here working. If you have this computer and you want to install Windows 10, let me know in the comments, and I can show you and I can share with you all my files that I use in order to install correctly the old drivers for Windows 10. Of course, Windows 11 is going to be totally out of the scope for this computer. This computer is not going to be able to upgrade to Windows 11. I don't want to fight again with drivers and everything. But out of the box, if you install Windows 10 on this computer, you will have almost everything working. But the SD card reader is not going to be working, and the Special Edition trackpad is not going to be working. I will show you now a little bit of samples of this Special Edition trackpad that it was introduced back in that day with this mobile precision workstation. So yeah, the performance of this computer is great, and it's still making an amazing job. And I don't know how else can I show you. I mean, let's try to reproduce the video that we just took now. And yeah, I mean, it works. Maybe it takes few seconds, milliseconds, to keep up the CPU, but hey, it works perfect. I mean, you can watch YouTube, you can surf the internet, you can edit video as well here, like 1080p. I'm gonna try to make an example as well later, but like an overall, this computer is an amazing computer. Let me tell you. Just to conclude, this workstation is a great workstation. It was an amazing workstation back in the days, and the objective of my video is to show you, as I just mentioned, a little bit of the history of high performance mobile computing and why it was everything introduced, and why it makes sense from still to now. And maybe if you say, Jorge, gaming computers, gaming laptop, MSI, and I don't know, Aorus, yes, but at the end, like industry professional, production engineers, production designers, simulation engineers, all those people in charge of creating this kind of hardware, of creating this kind of devices, because at the end, these devices, they need to be designed as well. They have 3D models of these computers. They have they made simulation of these computers, mechanical simulation, structural simulations, fluid flow simulations, for the thermal components to work properly. And at the end, those people that create the MSI gaming laptop of today, let me almost 100% tell you that they use these kind of devices to create the devices that you use at home. Yeah, it's like that. If probably Gigabyte gaming division, they use probably their Precision workstations or HP workstation or Lenovo ThinkStation in order to create their 3D models. And that's the reality, because these components were made and designed to work in such environments. They are reliable, they are powerful. Maybe if you think that this computer is like 4 or 5 kilograms weight, they are mobile. You still can take them with you, maybe to another country. If you need to review the chassis, if you need to review the frame, if you need to review the 3D model of the new motor, you can still take them with you, and you do not need to rely in remote components, in remote connections or something like that. That was the main idea behind this mobile computing, and it's still the main idea of mobile computing concept. So just to conclude, this workstation is still a pretty good workstation. If you follow the upgrades that I made for this video of the memory RAM, if you install good quality solid state drive, which are pretty cheap now, like for, I don't know, I think like for 20 euros, maybe 10 US dollars, you can get a pretty cheap SSD and they are good quality. You can just upgrade this computer. You can, for this laptop nowadays, you can forget totally the use of mechanical hard drives. They are just going to perform horrible. So SSD upgrade, memory RAM upgrade. You don't need to go overkill like myself with 32 gigabytes. It is overkill. But maybe, I don't know, like 16 gigabytes of RAM, it is going to be as well like 20 US dollars. So let's say a 20 US dollars upgrade for memory RAM and a 20 US dollars upgrade for the solid state drives, and this computer is going to make an amazing job. This edition, the Covet Red Orange Metallic Special Edition, it is a beauty. It is just an amazing piece of tech, and I'm so glad that after all these years I can share my experiences with you. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you like this video. I hope you like this special edition. If you have any questions, any doubts, or if you had this computer, or if you still have this computer, or if you met someone after your work that used to have this computer, let me know please in the comment. I'm going to be more than amazed to hear what are your experiences with workstations. And I know that it is a very old computer, but as I say, this is history, and this is the beginning of the era of Intel, as you may know now. So thank you very much for watching again. I hope you like this video. The Dell Precision M6500 Covet Special Edition was brought here to you, and see you until the next time.